Now we move ahead to the second session of the research symposium, that is scientific grant writing and funding opportunities. The moderator for this session, the speaker for this session will be Dr. Akshay Anand, and the moderator for this session is Dr. Raghuvendra Rao, M, BNYS PhD, Director, Central Council for Research in Yoga and Naturopathy, Ministry of Ayush, Government of India. Dr. Rao completed his bachelor's degree in naturopathy and yogic sciences with second rank from Bangalore University in 1998. He joined SVYASA as a research fellow in the same year and went on to become an assistant professor. He has completed several research projects in rheumatoid arthritis, pre-diabetes, diabetes, CVD risk prevention using both yoga and naturopathy interventions and SVYASA, MS Ramaiah Hospital, HCG Bangalore Institute of Oncology. He was a collaborator and OSHA PICRC NIH Fellow at UCSF School of Medicine, San Francisco from 2004 to 2006. He completed Indo-US study on yoga and pre-diabetes and yoga and HIV with UCSF School of Medicine, San Francisco. So completed his PhD in 2007 and joined Healthcare Global Enterprises Limited, Southeast Asia's largest network of oncology hospitals, as a senior scientist and head CAM program. He has 89 international research publications and 1 international book chapter. He is a member of the Ayush Research Portal, Government of India. He has won several awards like Sushila Thakur Prakriti Mendel Prize in 2001 by Apicon, Manonmani Rudraya Award from SVYASA for Best Thesis, and ASCO Conquer Cancer Foundation Merit Award in 2012 by American Society of Clinical Oncology. He has conducted workshops in Melbourne and Malaysia in UICC Congress. He has set up a department of CAM at Healthcare Global Enterprises, which is accredited by European Society for Integrative Oncology for Integrative Oncology. He has experience in conducting global clinical trials and was heading TriStar CRO, TriStar Bio Repository, HCG Cancer Registry and Clinical Repository and Clinical Audit and EHR. He has also undergone NABH assessor training by QCI. He has recently joined the post of Director, Central Council for Research in Yoga and Naturopathy, Ministry of Ayush, Government of India. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
So today's speaker is Dr. Akshay Anand, who is a professor, Department of Neurology, PGI, Chandigarh. We welcome you, sir. Dr. Anand.
Namaste, thank you.
Dr. Akshay Anand graduated from PGI Chandigarh. After obtaining his postdoctoral training at the Department of Immunopathology in the same institute, he joined the University of Kentucky as scientist too. After serving there for 2 years, he returned to join as the faculty of Department of Neurology, PGI India. He is a strong advocate of science, entrepreneurship, and integrative medicine schemes. Dr. Anand was nominated for prestigious Padma Award 2020, besides being honored by the UT Police for exemplary work in advancement of yoga research. He has been awarded for ICMR Amrut Modi Unichem Prize 2012, Annual PGI Faculty Award 2013-2014, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel Foundation 9th International Award 2014, Scopus Young Scientist Award runner-up, National Academy of Sciences India, New Delhi 2012, ICMR Shakuntala Amirchand Award 2010, Young Scientist Award from DAE in 2005, Retina Research Foundation Joseph M. and Eula C. Lawrence Award 2003, and many more. Besides mentoring his PhD students, he also led to a Swachh Bharat campaign, for which his team was awarded the Bharat Nirman Award. He is the editor-in-chief of Annals of Neurosciences, which is the official journal of Indian Academy of Neurosciences, and Journal of Integrative Medicine Case Report. Official journal of Swami Paramhansa Samsthana, former EIC of Integrative Medicine. He is also the reviewer of editor of Frontiers in Behavioral Neurosciences and on editorial advisory board, user-driven healthcare and narrative medicine, utilizing collaborative social networks and technologies and other international journals. He has over 149 publications in international peer-reviewed journals beside a patent on biological agent for regeneration. He was also a designated expert on mission by ICGEB Trust for Intellectual Property and is a resource faculty for various national and international forums and academic and regulatory committees. He serves as visiting professor of Kyoto University of Medicine and former visiting professor of CCRYN, Eastern European National University, Lutsk, and former visiting scientist at Sri Sri Institute of Advanced Research, Bengaluru, and University of Kentucky. Now I'll hand the session over to Dr. Rao. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you, ma'am. This is Dr. Raghuvendra here. I'm honored to be part of this event. I thank NIMHANS for organizing this event online, despite all the problems which you face because of the COVID-19. And this is a very interesting session because most of you as students or PhD scholars will be awaiting. Because today, if any research has to progress in this field of yoga or meditation, you need to have some grants, you need some sort of funding opportunities. And what better way to get those things by getting a very good grant and also knowing which are the agencies and which are the avenues to get these grants funded from. Over to Akshay Anand to throw more light on this matter. Akshay, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Raghuvendra. Thank you, NIMHANS and Dr. Gangadhar, Guruji, Dr. Nagendra, Didi, Dr. Nagaratna, everybody, Dr. Sadbir, Rima Dada, and everybody else. It's a distinct pleasure to be with you all, even though it is 7 o'clock or 7:19 and yet at the comforts of home. It's an opportunity that COVID gives us to interact. But I'm given today a topic which is close to my heart, but not the one that I can show my data from. But more important to actually generate data and to take the question of Dr. Sadbir forward. So how to take the question that he referred to in Dr. Shivarama and Dr. Gangadhar's group of taking dosing of yoga schedules forward, how to bring in the cognitive therapy combined to yoga therapy, how it can further improve the situation or just keep it same. How to know if we can stop the conversion of a pre-disease state to a disease state. So, and also how to publish a paper without acknowledgement saying my study was funded by this, ICMR or Ayush, or so you have to fill that up. So I'm going to make this talk a little interesting, and one thing I thought to make it interesting was to not use slides. So and also I thought if I could structure it, I thought I will structure it into who needs scientific grant writing, who means who are the people, and then why do we need this? I described a little bit, but more of whys. Then I will come to what is scientific grant writing, what does it comprise, what is the structure, after all, what are the different components, and then how to write it and how to raise research questions. And then finally, where to do this research, and where means which site, rural, urban, men, women, and all that. So I'll try to do justice to this challenge that the NIMHANS has posed to me. So starting from what Dr. Raghuvendra said, that there are students here, I guess I'm focusing on them, and I'm also focusing on young faculty and the mature faculty, the middle-aged, and the little more experienced faculty already knows the ins and outs of scientific writing. So starting from do students need grants? The Junior Research Fellowship, as it is known in our country, we do not have to write a grant, but we need to write an exam and pass it and earn ourselves the Junior Research Fellowship, by which we can walk into a lab, a yoga lab, molecular biology lab, physiology lab, and start our PhD program. But yes, when you have done 2 years of Junior Research Fellowship, which even Ayush offers, ICMR offers, TST, DVT, or CSIR offers, the Senior Research Fellowship is where you actually get started with your first proposal or the grant writing. So these are the people who have completed 2 years of Junior Research Fellowship or post-MSc or post-BYNS or post of your master's degree. I think you are eligible to write a Senior Research Fellowship grant or a mini proposal, which is not so stringently reviewed, quite reviewed in a soft manner, but it has to be nicely written with clear research questions, with an introduction, and I will come to the structure when I describe the the generic structure of a grant application. And if you get that funded to you, then some institutes allow you to walk into a PhD program, which you could not when you didn't earn a junior research fellowship. You could not enter into a PhD program. So some institutes allow you to get a senior research fellowship, your own funding, and then you can walk in and start your PhD project that you like. Postdoctoral fellows, yes, there are avenues in our country for postdoctoral fellowship programs. Let me get back to senior research fellowship. It may be a little challenging since I was told to focus on yoga research. Senior research fellowship for yoga research may be a little tricky. I'm sure Dr. Raghuvendra is listening, and he might come up tomorrow or a year's time of specified senior research fellowship proposals directed towards Ayush and towards yoga. If they exist, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. But for the others, you can actually tailor your research proposal so that it combines the mandate of DBT or ICMR such that the yoga becomes either an adjuvant or some experimental form testing some aspects of it in animals, or so that it adheres to the mandate of that particular funding agency. So then moving on to the postdoctoral. Once you have done your PhD, you are still looking for a grant. You need a postdoctoral fellowship to survive. And again, you can write a grant application. You're required to write. So among the who's that I'm discussing, the postdoctoral fellowships are available in DBT, Department of Biotechnology. They're available in welcome grant application format. CSIR, I believe, offers what is called the research associateship. ICMR also gives, and Department of Health Research, DHR, also gives postdoctoral fellowships. But your proposal has to be a proposal which has, as I will describe the structure, very briefly, aims, objectives, a good introduction, a good methodology with statistical sample calculation techniques shown, statistics shown, and a good decent budget of what you will need if the particular agency gives you that provision to put on the budget in your proposal. And then you can get started with the postdoctoral applications. Some of them are even at the level of Inspire fellowships, which are provided by, I think, DST, Department of Science and Technology. Very, very few of those pursuing yoga research are actually putting in applications for Inspire or for Welcome Grant. I think even for ICMR, a lot of them try to look just as a gateway or a peep into an Ayush system. So please don't stop there. You can still go beyond the borders of Ayush until, as the Dr. Nagaratna said, as the integrative health program is opening up, I'm sure the integrative funding agencies are also going to converge to break the barriers where the postdoctoral applications do not have venues to put in their application. And then who else? The NGOs, not only the institutions, but even the non-government organizations or non-profit organizations may want to have funding to take the research forward, to make a mark in society of things that the government framework cannot allow, of the freedom that may not happen due to too much of the bureaucracy, may like to be undertaken by organizations, and they can also be an applicant. They can be among the who's list of a potential applicant for a scientific grant that they may write. The funding agencies, I will come at the end, include government organizations, which I will name, and a few of them I've already named. The others may also include non-government organizations as well. So, and then finally, the young faculty. For them, it is an important thing to happen, not just because you, as a senior research fellow, want a fellowship, or a research associate, as a postdoctoral fellow, you want money to survive, but now you are a faculty and you definitely need to run your research program, either for the zeal and the fun and the love of it, or the passion of it, or to get a promotion in your particular organization, in a university, or in a medical institute framework, or in the All India Institute of Ayush, or Ayurveda, or whatever. You would need to show up your research. What Dr. Sadbir Khalsa's question that he raised, how to follow them up, will need money. And that money is where it, either, if you remember, I told you, is also need to be, is requires to be spelled out to the ethical committee which approves your plan, and also to be written in the research paper who funded your project. So it's, and above all this, above all these regulatory requirements, is the importance of your ability to raise money, to raise consumables, and to use them to answer those research questions. So fund is definitely important. So these are in brief the who's, and let's move to why we need. So I touched a bit of that now. For me, the innumerable number of failed clinical trials. At least I am a neuroscientist. I work in various neurological disorders. You talk Alzheimer's disease, multiple sclerosis, some strokes, many autoimmune disorders, neurogenetic disorders, ataxias, muscular dystrophies. They have no cure. And to me, that itself is enough a reason that I want to foray into the area of yoga intervention and see and examine what is known in the literature and what is not known, and then put up a grant application. And this is the why for me. I don't know if it is for you. It may be a mandate for you in the why you need a grant application. Why should you know scientific writing skills at all? Maybe because your mandate of your institute belong to a research institute which has its mandate in yoga. But if you do not have a mandate in yoga, what do you do? Then to your love for cancer or love for neurodegenerative disorders or love for Ayurvedic drugs, animal models, cell culture systems, you can still bring in the yogic aspects, the yoga research questions, and integrate them in such a way so that it suits the mandate of your research. This is important because I'm trying to address all the people here, whether with yoga mandate, and I'm sure there are those explorers who have not ventured into yoga research. So I invite you to use this as a guiding principle to raise research questions that are aligned to yoga research, as told by Dr. Sadbir. And then comes the budget. We are talking about money. We are talking about scientific grant writing. The most important part of why you want a grant why you need to know a grant, how to write a grant, is because you should also know how much money you need. And traditionally, in most of the grant applications, your budget is segmented into manpower, which gives you power to execute your research. You need people to work with you to execute ideas on the ground, in the lab, on the bench, or to conduct surveys. I will come to different kinds of studies. We can use that to frame research questions. So you need manpower. That should be a part of your budget, and you should have some consumables because you may need plasticware, some syringes, some gloves to take out the blood. You may need to carry out tests, and you may need some infrastructure, some equipments, vortex or HRV, heart rate variability, whatever that your research question. So budget needs to be a part and parcel of scientific writing. That is why you need a good skill on scientific writing. And then another why, not just research questions that have to be answered, Dr. Sadbir said, but also go one level beyond that. Patent the technology that you think will be useful for for taking yoga parameters sensed by, let us say, a sensor or biosensor you want to come out with a product. And towards that, you may like to write a grant application, a scientific writing project, which addresses a technology issue which is deficient in our current yogic research landscape. And of course, the other reasons are publications, and publications are connected with your promotions, and promotions are connected with your being happy and euphoric and doing good work in your colleagues, and that is connected with now today's online world where you want to project yourself and your work as worthy of your society and its translation and societal good. So these are enough reasons for you to actually show. Another couple of policy research papers show that people who publish more, who get good research funding, are also able to contribute more to the society. A lot of you may just like to be finding reasons why I want to write. Neither your mandate is there, you are well settled, and those could be just seniors, and those could be just students, senior research fellows. But it shows that those who have more grants are actually also more gifted with the, you are empowered with the better management skills and managing human resources, doing more for the society, and being able to produce something as a product which is of benefit to the society. One example could be the untreatability of the COVID scenario. Now, let's move to the whats of scientific writing. So we touched about who need, and then we went on to whys of research, scientific grant writing, and let's now move to what kind of research grants. Are these just fellowship grants? Some of the areas may be overlapping, which I may have already talked about. It could be small grants. It could be startup grants for a younger faculty. Those are available in DST, easy to get. The structure and contours I will just come to, but I'm just classifying them for structuring and for better learning and memory here. so that you can also ask questions under these divisions of who's, what's, and why. So coming to why, what of the research, there could be PI-driven research. This could be research which is a research grant application just for women scientists. The women among you who are there may not know, there exists a category of women scientists. And also in that category, very few yoga research applications or research grant applications land. So for you to note, and I was in our Yoga Scholars PGMER program running for last 6 months. We've been talking about Nobel Prizes and Nobel laureates. We've been pointing out and discussing the Nobel women laureates. The two ladies, Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuelle, just won the Nobel for chemistry for CRISPR-Cas9. And although the Nobel Prize Committee is actually showing it up as a flagship thing, that they're the ones who were always criticized for not awarding enough women. So the Indian policymakers have already put that into the system, and there is a women scientist program which requires good grant writing skills. So these are the definitions of different kinds of questions and types of grants, from students to women scientists to startup grants to multi-centric grants. And then there are post-retirement grants also, which are available under some funding agency that you may not know. Now, what to write and what to write in a grant. So first of all, the title of the grant should be very, very attractive, because the first impression is the last impression. Everybody is out of time, everybody is busy, and they may like to just go touch the topic that abstract at most and may just skip very important things written down. So most important things first. An attractive title followed by origin of the problem. Why you chose this problem, what is the origin? Actually, what is the origin should be spelled out in yoga research. Is it that diabetes is incurable? Is it that COVID is untreatable? Is it just that there is nothing, the kids are just glued to the screens, are getting addicted? This is a problem. This is the origin. And we should trace that by citing references and then defining the problem. What is the problem? Is the problem just the conversion of pre-diabetes to diabetes is happening at a very fast pace? That is the problem, and that needs to be halted. That could be one definition. So if you structure your ideas into a good title, an introduction, and introducing the topic, using the references in the literature, and then spelling out the origin of the, adding a para of, even regardless of funding agency not requiring it, you can yourself add in italics and say, this is the original problem, this is how I define the problem, and then you say, hence, this is my aim of the problem. My aim is to study the impact of diabetic yoga protocol in pre-diabetes conversion to diabetes. My aim of the problem, my research project is, you can spell out of the effect of Sudarshan Kriya Yoga on PO2 levels in high altitude. So this should be the aim, one clear aim, and which should be discussed and justified by the objectives that you can enumerate. So if you write that, if you structure it, the reviewer's eye will fall on that. And if they're just keywords, even if you do not write narrative, verbose grant proposal, it is even better for you, because the keywords are what a busy reviewer looks at. I wish you were a reviewer, if you could handle and request your mentors to let you review a grant, let you review a manuscript, and if you write a lot manuscript, you deposit and submit lots of grant manuscripts, you will be used to, and if you will be used to how the reviewer's eye preys on or scans a grant proposal. So these are just things that the reviewer's eye falls on: title, aim, objective, origin. Oh, this is the origin. This is the definition. Oh, these are the methodology. Even if there are keywords and not so verbose, you have done your job well. And the more precise, the more concise the grant application is, the more the chances of it being funded. A lot of reviewers just may not go into the detail, may look for these things that I mentioned, and a lot of them will go into looking, how did you calculate the sample size? They will look for that category. Even they may not go into it and read it, but if it is there, you have done your job well, it shows your seriousness. The casualness is actually reflected if you don't structure them into introduction, good title, aims, objectives, methods, statistics, significance, good reference style, without any grammatical mistakes, good spell checks done, nicely justified text, beautifully laden with nice formatted and well formatted Word file put into a PDF file. These small things comprise what I call the what of scientific writing. And what important things the reviewers, and even before the reviewers are given your grant application, it will still go through people like Dr. Raghuvendra, who will have an internal screening. The one exists in DBT. The similar one exists, I believe, in NIH in US, in Wellcome grant applications, in ICIMA, CSI. So this internal screening looks at your proposal. Maybe the budget falls in that area. So it's a good idea for you to be a reviewer, as I mentioned. If possible, call up the program officer who is handling those particular grants. You can just say hello or email what are the limits of that particular grant that I'm writing on yoga research. Do I qualify to be a women scientist? Do I qualify to be a senior research fellow? And accordingly, decide your category and talk to that person, and then put in your application, because this program officer is going to be the part of the internal screening, including people like Dr. Raghuvendra, who will have a first look at it and then send it to the reviewer. So it is quite likely that your good grant application may not even go to a reviewer and maybe just rejected at the internal screening level. And these people at the internal screening level will pretty much pay attention to these categories that I just pointed out for you. Another important category, apart from statistics and the sample calculation, is the ethics and ethical statement. If you run it through your internal ethical committee, you can very proudly say that this particular project has been approved by the ethical committee. If it is not, you can say it is being processed, but do write something, and that we will follow the informed consents approved by our ethical committee, and the same may be communicated in due course once the application is approved by you. You can even, a good cover letter can explain the special circumstances of you not adhering to a deadline, or of you not putting up a ethical statement out there, or if you're not being able to tell a sample size there. A cover note can suffice. For example, I will give you an example. There were some deadlines for the Ramakrishna mission. They gave a lot of money on yoga research, and I was late. This was last day. My institute didn't have time. I didn't have time. I learned the last day. So I wrote a nice cover letter saying that I believe that you will look at the merit of the proposal and not at the paperwork, which I will complete later. So whatever is inside, you just spell it out in a good, nice cover note. And I'm sure the funder is looking for, they're going to be accountable for the government which gives the money, or the NGO, or the taxpayers' money. So they're going to make sure that a good grant is funded, because they have to answer and account for. And they also know that the paperwork can be completed later, provided you give a statement, so which they can put to their committees, to their bosses in that funding organization. So a cover letter is important, an ethics statement is important, a statistics statement is very, very important. A good flow of the references that you're writing is very important. The more you are able to write, we showed this, and now we want to prove, test this, is a very good idea. And if you can add a pilot data to your grant application, it will be wonderful. But some of you may be just thinking, we are just new into the field, so it doesn't matter to write that out in a cover note, saying that we do not have a pilot data as we're initiating into it, that we would like you to consider this particular application in the context of our young investigatorship ideas put out or spelled out in that grant application. And you can also cite a few references and cardinal points in the cover letter itself. But if you can have pilot data, it is very good, because it enhances the acceptability. You can collaborate with people who have pilot data and are sitting there, maybe uninterested. Collaborate, network. Now is the time through online system to do that. And the funding agency also looks at the multi-centric nature of the trials, because they are accountable for the money that comes in, the income taxpayers' money or whatever. So the more you are able to combine disciplines and into a convergent singular question, the more the chances of you benefiting of going past the internal screening of the funding agency into the reviewer's hand. And they also look very, very, they become soft on applications that are having, for example, somebody from yoga, another from physiology, from another institute, from the rural area. You can pick up investigators who can replenish a lack of pilot data into that grant application, and you can then fashion that grant application within the framework of what I described as the various categories of a grant application, and put it within a deadline and start working before deadline. And this, I believe, will be what is called as the preliminary generic draft, or a structure, or what I call as the what of a scientific grant writing. If you have a consultant, a senior person if you can run it through him or her, can you please look at my application? Or even if you're senior enough, even at my level, I always ask my friends, hey, just look at it. Because what you are mostly blind to what you are telling and proposing, it always helps you get exposed to ideas and perspectives that to which you are blind, and you may come up with a very good suggestion. And the good thing to do that, to achieve that, is to do it in advance. So if the deadline is 2 months ahead of you or 1 month before, after what it is today, you can start doing these activities, categorizing, writing, grammar checks, spell check, pilot data, contacting your various investigators, putting it in the format, putting the reference style, and of course complying and aligning it to the respective funding agencies' instructions. You know, they have formats. And as I mentioned, if you do not have a format, you can still work out with origin of. But these are personalized answers. Some may object that why did you write origin of proposal? Why did you write definition of problem if the particular Ayush agency, for example, doesn't want it? But I think most of the people are reasonable. They will entertain that. So if you have time, if you start before, you can do it well. And if you can write the ethics part, if you have ethical approval, it is even better for the ethical for the funding agency to say, okay, this is ready. And now finally, how do you submit that? A lot of applications used to go hard copy. I think now everything is online. So touch of a button before you wait for the last minute. It's always better to do that online with a good internet connection and ahead of time. It's best to use the online, menu-driven pockets, and you put in all the data. So be ready for that. Some of them say that you put it online and then print out and then send them a hard copy, which is also a very, very good idea. You know, when you write,
you have 2 more minutes.
Okay, so I will now try to speed up. So when you write a grant application, you can cite your own references. You can cite Ayush's project. You can also use technology developed by that funding agency to make your case aligned to your research question. That's one of the smart moves on how you can do it. And the questions, then what comprises a good research question? I would say questions that take yoga research forward is one way. One is where there are no answers available completely. I always like to say pick up pre-disease states to show the impact of yoga. So I always say you choose diabetes before diabetes, pre-diabetes, and see the intervention for that time and look at what happens. So look at pre-cancer, see what happens. Look at pre-stroke, what is called the TIAs, and see what happens over yoga intervention. So this will give you a kind of a handle of how good the yoga interventions are working. Then the protocol, the durations, you can work with them in different permutation combinations, which can become different grant applications. Do not try to replicate a grant application different agencies. This is called plagiarism, which is as much a problem, a crime, as to the manuscripts that you submit. So I like to really you to identify the gaps in the literature review, which is another component. I'm sorry, I'm going a little bit haphazard. And then identify your skills and put that out. Identify the area that requires research, the areas which are unjustified, unrecognized or addressed by the modern medicine, such as the lifestyle disorders, the genetic disorders, and then that will make it more attractive for a funding agency to do it. And I again repeat, if you take some patents of that organization or friends and colleagues, and if you take that up as a technology development research question in yoga, for example, apps, you will develop a customized yoga apps, which will be an augmented reality app, which will help you do yoga in a customized fashion by a sensor-driven system, will obviate the need of in COVID times, particularly the need of a trainer. Could be a technology-oriented research for app that research technology that Dr. Raghuvendra has developed, yoga mat, which has sensors and it picks up HRV signals, can be another technology-driven. So we should not restrict ourselves to research questions. We should go beyond to technology. We should go even into policy research of yoga, what mapping out yoga researchers in India could be a research question. Survey kind of research question can be another. Then finally the where, and this is the final, I'll just take 1.5 minutes more, where to do this research. Rural areas, urban areas, men-centric research, women-centric pregnancy areas of where yoga intervention pregnant women can enhance the cord blood production. You can go into animal area of taking blood or stem cell from a peripheral blood of a yoga practitioner, put them in animal model and see the efficacy. You can do it in the cell culture system. You will need to collaborate with biologists, cell culture, tissue culture people. So you can also go to areas of, when you determine where to do research, onto sites where there is minimal confounding factors such as food, environment. What are those factors? Asylums, what are those places? Schools, prisons, you can go to a high altitude. So these are places where you will eat the same food, have the same environment, and the confounding factors which will take you away from the critics who will say when you publish, oh, your yoga didn't do anything, you didn't have enough controls. It may be food that must be showing. It can be minimized by where you do yoga, which particular community you do yoga. You can choose judges to work on it. You can do military personnel, they eat the same food, they live in the same barracks. You can get to work on residents who have burnout syndrome, our doctors, to also get them into the fold of integrative health. These are some ideas. And finally, even take your research to autopsy. These could be research questions, and these could be where the research could go. So from who to what to why to what, where, this is where we are in the talk that I just gave. Autopsies, we haven't looked at autopsies of people who died doing yoga practitioners. The real crux, we haven't gone there. Longitudinal study, lifelong studies of yoga, what happens, what diseases they contract over the years. And what are the agencies that told you? DST has Satyam, Ayush is there, DRDO is there. ICMR may not fund, DBT may not fund. Our different secretaries are trying to put funding agencies together, but Defense Research Organization has a component of military application in high altitude and other areas where they may fund research in yoga. It's quite possible. It's also finally a good idea to put FAQs, frequently asked questions, that if you are in people, if your grant application will land into a non-yoga person. So if you may also put in your educational qualification as a yoga practitioner, if you are just a scientist without, get a yoga course done, get a level 1, 2 done, and put it in your application, and then put it in a manner that you say this out, that you want to, if it lands on a non-yoga table, you can spell out the application, and FAQs will help you in a very, very big way. Finally, be prepared that this is not going to be funded just as it is. It may be advised, you may be advised changes. Be open, be a sportsman, be a yoga person, take it happily with full tolerance. Don't curse because you are a yoga practitioner, you are a yoga researcher. Revise that, revise the budget, minimize it, get the first grant that you want so you can generate data, publish it, patent it, make it into a technology, and be a yoga researcher who contributes in post-COVID era, which is an era of integrative health education and integrative health research and integrative health practice. Thank you very much for listening. I'll be very happy to take questions. Sorry for overshooting my time.
Thank you, Akshay. And there are two questions, one of which is a policy decision which I'm going to answer. One is a question for you. Do we require any sort of prior peer-reviewed publications before we apply for a grant?
Do we need a prior application? So if you remember, I addressed
prior
that.
peer-reviewed publications.
Ideally, the funders find it attractive because the money they're giving, they have to be responsible for the seniors. And we gave the grant to a person who had the expert skills. But there may be people like me. When I sit on a task force, I say, no, we should give this person, look at the collaborator, he's first, he's new. And if it's a women, I always make a point and I talk to Dr. Raghuvendra, if he's there, yeah, we should fund it. But it depends where you land. But if you have a publication, good. If you do not have, collaborate with somebody who becomes your co-investigator, and spell it out in a cover letter, put up the pilot data from a co-investigator, or you start doing something, your PhD work that you did, put it as an unpublished data and put it there. I think it helps, but it is not a disadvantage if you spell out that you are a yoga investigator, having worked on this on a PhD, and then now you want to venture into this area for this reason. But there is no definite answer for this. So I think you have to be mixed. It's personalized kind of answer.
Thank you, Dr. Akshay. There's another question. Do we have any sort of funding for master's research? So I would like to take the answer for this.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, for master's degree, we don't have funding. We do have funding for PhD scholars, because when you talk about PhDs, there's some novelty in the research which you do and the dissertation which you do, and the time you put for research is much higher than you do for a master's degree. In master's degree, it will hardly be around 2 months to 3 months. That cannot be funded by institutions. That's why we don't have any funding for a master's program, but we do have funding for a PhD level program. So we have PhD fellowship in Ayush, as well as in Ayush, which one can apply for, and they can get the grant up to 5 years. Okay, there is extension between 2 years to 5 years. This is one aspect of it. Secondly, to conclude this session, Akshay, just a few things I would like to share with all of you. I was being a grant recipient myself, to being a being a member of the project evaluation committee, and now also being a part of the funding agency. So there is this important aspect of grant writing, which is very, very important for all of you. So whenever a funding agency looks at the funding somebody for the grant, they look at somebody's competency, his prior experience, his expertise, and institution backing he has to be able to deliver the grant, the feasibility of doing the particular study. That is a very, very important aspect of it. So being in a very good institution or collaborating with a very important institution is a very important plus point. Second thing is your grant, your study question, research question should be very specific, very, very objective, and it should be very, very novel. So you should be adding to the existing knowledge. There's no point in doing, for example, the small study is done on pregnancy with yoga intervention. There's no point in doing one more study on the same area, on the same kind of parameters, with the same similar kind of sample size, about 30, 40, etc. So we need to go much ahead to this. We have to do a thorough literature review, see that what you do is going to ask a new question which has not been answered before, or is it going to add to the existing knowledge, or is it going to make the evidence level more robust. So that should be something, some advantage or take-home message or novelty in the research project you design. And very importantly, when anybody looks at your grant, the first thing is the novelty, the second thing is your competence, third is your aims and objectives, very, very specific. Having too many aims and objectives means you're just going here and there, you're not focused on your research question, you're not focused on your study, and trying to do too many studies, too many questions in one particular study is not a very good idea. So one objective, one important primary outcome variable, and then you having a proper sample size to justify the variable makes a very good research design. And that is a very important thing which everybody should take home. Why I'm saying this is, we have been in the last couple of weeks, even today as well, we are just doing many of the grants from DST. So DST had got a call for COVID. You believe it or not, they received 680 grant applications. They received 680 grant applications, and even after our pre-screening, everything was over, still they are receiving the grant applications and we are still reviewing them. Okay, so this is one more aspect of it. So when the agency looks at so many amount of applications, they will look at competency, look at parameters before they think of funding with money, because the grant money given by the funding agency should be utilized for a good publication, and then look at people who are trusted, who already have prior publications in the prior publications. So if you already have prior publications, that means that you stand a better chance of getting a grant. That's why if you're already working in an institution, please see that you start publishing your dissertation, your thesis, or any sort of work which you do, see that it leads to a particular publication, because this is going to be an advantage and a plus point for you whenever you apply for a grant for a granting institution or agency. And the last one, being the part of the funding agencies, I think we need to really enlarge the scope of the amount of grant award to the other institutions. We have to learn to expand the amount of money involved in grant projects. We need to increase the sample size to improve the level of evidence for yoga researchers. 2 decades, we have been doing a lot of pilot studies. We have so many proof of concept studies. We have so many observational studies, but we hardly have many clinical trials, RCTs. Okay, the number of RCTs in yoga is quite small. So we need to have large RCTs, multicentric studies, and we need to try to pull in resources, pull in grant money, even pull in and collaborate with funding agencies to make this happen. We are doing the same thing with ICMR now. We are going to start a very large study on heart failure. A task force has already been formed. The grant is also already been given to PHFI, and they're going to be starting this very soon. And similarly, we are starting one more big multicentric study on COVID-19 to DST. So based on all this, we are also looking at seeing how to get all of them on board for the same similar kind of protocols so that we can generate a proper level of evidence. And this is very, very important, because today what we speak is the level of evidence. If you have a better sound level of evidence, you can get into guidelines, you can get into treatment regimen. So that is what we need to see, how we can integrate yoga into conventional regimen. And there are going to be a lot of difficulties, but this is the only way we can overcome these kind of difficulties in integration is by sound research and sound evidence. And I thank Dr. Akshay for throwing light, and I'm sure most of the students, young researchers and fellows who are and faculty have learned a lot from your talk. And I thank Nimans for giving us the opportunity to share our views with all the viewers in this very webinar. Thank you once again all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Raghuvendra.
Hey,
Thank you very much, Dr. Anand. Thank you, Dr. Rao. Now I would like Dr. Malla Bhaskar Rao, sir, to felicitate Dr. Akshay Anand, sir. Dr. Heman Bhargav will receive the award on behalf of Dr. Anand.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.